When Mark and Olivia Grant moved into 657 Boulevard, they believed they had found their forever home. Nestled in the affluent town of Westfield, New Jersey, the Dutch colonial revival with its ivy-covered brick and wide porches seemed like something out of a magazine. The neighbors were friendly, the schools were prestigious, and the tree-lined street exhaled an air of timeless stability. It had taken years of saving and a bit of luck to outbid other offers, but when the seller accepted their bid, they couldn't stop smiling. Olivia, an interior designer, already had mood boards and swatches laid out. Mark, a history teacher, had taken a special interest in the home's construction. Built in 1905, the house was one of the oldest on the street. The day they moved in, their 3 children, Ethan, 10, Lily, 7, and Max, 5, ran through the halls, their footsteps echoing off the hardwood floors. The sun poured through the leaded glass windows, and for a moment, everything was perfect. Then came the letter. It arrived in a plain white envelope, no return address. Typed on cream paper, the letter was signed simply, The Watcher. 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. I see you've moved in. Have you found what's in the walls yet? I've been waiting for you. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies beneath the floorboards? Time is ticking. At first, they thought it was a prank. Olivia laughed nervously and tossed the letter on the kitchen counter. But Mark reread it several times. There was something too specific about the wording, too calculated. He took the letter to the Westfield police. The officer who read it furrowed his brow. Other families on this street have gotten weird mail before, he said, almost too casually. But nothing we can act on. Just keep an eye out. When Mark got back, Olivia had already found another envelope. This one was tucked between the cracks of their mailbox like it had been placed by hand. You moved in on a Tuesday. The previous family moved out on a Thursday. Have you asked them why they left so quickly? I would have. The walls remember everything. Sometimes they whisper. Do you hear them yet? 3 nights later, the scratching began. Mark heard it first. A subtle scritch behind the walls of the bedroom. He assumed it was mice and promised Olivia he'd call an exterminator. But it wasn't the scurrying of rodents. The sound was too deliberate, too rhythmic. Ethan began sleepwalking. Olivia found him standing in the hallway one night, facing a wall and whispering. "What are you doing?" she asked, gently touching his shoulder. "She's in there," Ethan said flatly, then turned and walked back to bed. The next morning, he didn't remember any of it. They brought in a contractor to inspect the house. While checking a sealed portion of the basement wall, he called Mark down. "You ever notice this?" He pointed to a faint seam running along the stone wall. It looked like a doorway had once existed, but had been bricked over. At the top of the arch were the faint outlines of carved letters, "Watch." Before Mark could ask about it, the contractor's flashlight flickered and went out. "Old wiring," the man muttered. But they both stood still for a long moment, listening. There it was again, scratching. Then, knocking. From inside the wall. Mark, ever the researcher, dove into public records, library archives, and the Westfield Historical Society's collections. What he found left him chilled. The original owner of 657 Boulevard was a man named Elias Westmore, a banker whose daughter, Grace, vanished without a trace in 1913. Rumors suggested she'd been hiding in the house to escape an arranged marriage, and that Elias had sealed part of the basement to contain her hysteria. The house passed through several families, each reporting strange phenomena: disappearing pets, whispers in the walls, unexplainable drafts and voices behind mirrors. In 1972, the Carmichael family moved in and fled just 8 months later. Police records revealed an anonymous tip they had received letters from someone calling themselves the Watcher. Mark found a quote in a 1973 local newspaper article that read, The house listens, and it remembers. One day, the walls will open again. That night, Olivia found a third letter, folded neatly beneath Max's pillow. It's good to see young blood in the halls again. The house needs it. You're bringing it back to life. Lily hums when she's alone, just like Grace used to. Do you think she remembers? Mark and Olivia tried to keep things normal for the kids, but the house resisted. Lights flickered even after the electrical system was redone. Toys moved overnight. Lily claimed someone sang to her through the vents. Max started having nosebleeds whenever he entered the upstairs hallway. One night, while Mark was in the attic checking for rodents, he found something wedged in the rafters. A doll's head, glassy-eyed and cracked. Behind it, a piece of brittle paper was tied with a red ribbon. He unrolled it. Her name is Grace. She never left. Neither did I. Terrified, they brought in a paranormal investigator named Dr. Harold Miles, who spent 3 nights in the house. On the second night, his equipment recorded a deep, guttural whisper, repeating the word, "Watcher." By the third night, he refused to stay. "Something is nested in that home," he said. "It's not just haunted, it's sentient. It knows you." In a desperate attempt to get to the bottom of it, Mark began tearing out portions of the basement wall with the contractor's help. Behind the bricked-over arch, they found a narrow corridor that led to a small, windowless room. Inside was a child's wooden chair facing a cracked mirror. The words, "Watch her," had been carved into the floor. A rusted music box sat on a dusty shelf. When Mark turned its key, it played a slow, haunting melody. From somewhere behind the wall, he swore he heard humming, perfectly in tune. They sealed the room back up, but something had changed. That night, every door in the house slammed shut at once. The thermostat dropped to 43 degrees Fahrenheit. In the baby monitor, a voice whispered, "You found my room." Letters continued arriving, more aggressive and intimate. "You woke her. Why would you wake her?" Olivia cries in the shower. The house drinks her sorrow. "Mark, it's your fault. You opened the door." She sees again. The family began staying at a motel. They tried to sell the house, but no one would buy it after learning of the Watcher. One morning, as they returned to gather a few belongings, they found the phrase, "Stay forever," scrawled across their living room mirror in what looked like rust. That evening, Ethan went missing. They found him hours later, asleep in the hidden room behind the basement wall. He had drawn dozens of stick figures on the walls, each with hollow black eyes. "I was playing with Grace," he said. Olivia demanded they burn the house down. Mark, driven half-mad by guilt and obsession, stayed one more night. He set up cameras, waited in the dark. Hours passed. Then he heard it, the scratching, the knocking, the music box melody echoing from the vents. And then, a voice. "You were chosen. We all are. The house calls. The house keeps." From the shadows of the hallway, something emerged. Not quite a person, not quite a ghost, a presence. Long limbs, hollow eyes, a mouth that did not move, yet spoke directly into his mind. "There is no Watcher. I am the walls. You let me out," Mark screamed. He never made it out of the house. Olivia took the children and left the state. The house at 657 Boulevard sat empty again. Weeds grew, windows cracked, but the letters continued. To neighbors, to real estate agents, to curious journalists. They didn't listen. Will you, the walls, remember you too? There's always someone watching. Late at night, if you walk past the house, you might see the lights flicker on, just for a moment. And if you press your ear to the brick, you might hear a voice whisper, "I never left."